Wilson, doing this room first.
I guess I am. I had hoped tonight that we'd see a little discussion, public hearing on this, because there's obviously been some interest in regards to the items that I had discussed. There were concerns of medical marijuana in the area, certainly the city of Escanaba, because I believe it transcends far beyond the issue of the medical use of marijuana and the legal use of it, or illegal use of medical marijuana, marijuana in general, or the illegal use of prescription drugs. So maybe it's not as big an issue as what I had thought it was, but I will go on with my presentation, albeit a brief overview. I think the problem that we're experiencing here, and in my apologies to those that are using it illegally, is the drug problem in the area. I think as a community, we fail to recognize what's happening to our community. We've always had alcohol problems, and to some extent we've had drug problems, but those drug problems are growing exponentially compared to anything. And we see it in recognized deaths, injuries, illnesses, younger people using drugs illegally. It is now causing great concern in our community, the livability of it. It's a social, economic, and public safety issue. It affects all three of them. Our economy has been very poor. When the economy goes poor, the abuses of drug and alcohol goes up, and that's not the only reason it has, but it certainly has helped grow this. I'm told that 80 to 90%, maybe greater, of our inmates in the county jail are either related to some drug crimes or crimes related to drugs. When you look at, if you watch the forum last night and the county commission candidates, they all discussed the cost of the jail and the potential need for that. Imagine if we could cut that in half. I'm not saying we can with any of the actions I propose tonight, but just a little bit of it. It would be life-saving. It would save the county money. It would save the misery that's associated with the abuse of drugs and alcohol in our community. Government's most important function, in my belief, is public safety. I brought this to the joint government committee here. I will ask them again, if we act on this resolution tonight, to move forward to ask the state to fix the current law. We're not talking about the legality or illegality of medical marijuana. What we're talking about are the abuses and the dangers that are being presented to this community unbeknownst to most of us who are not involved in either firefighting, police work, emergency medical technicians, hazmat, the hazardous mat people. They're all faced with those dangers. And it's not too funny if you're working in that. They're not looking to change the law. They're looking to have a reasonable approach so that we have some control locally, that we know that an apartment isn't being rented by someone from Milwaukee or Chicago for the sole purpose of growing dope. I'll repeat that, for the sole purpose of growing dope from outside this community because the current law allows them to do it. Now, if I sound a little excited, I am. And if your argument is to carte blanche, make drugs illegal, come forward and say it. You're probably going to have to go to the state, not here. But this is ridiculous what we're facing here in our community. Again, we're not talking about the legality of it. We're talking about the illegality of it. The cost of fire. Mold in apartment buildings that the owner may or may not reside in. The security. People breaking into homes and steal your dope, your cash, your arms. The violence we've seen in our community. We have an unsolved murder from a couple of years ago. Is it drug-related? I don't know. But we never saw those things before. All of these things are continuing to rise. What do you want to blame it on? I think there's a lot of things there, but drugs are certainly one of them. Walk through our town. Look at the looks of some of the folks that are out there. Look at the people who have the free dental clinics sometimes who are losing their teeth and wondering why. When they're taking meth, for 3 days they're high, and awake, 2 days they're sleeping. We've got to understand somehow, and council has an opportunity here to put our step forward and say, hey, enough is enough. The folks voted by a very large margin to make Marijuana available to those who have a medical needs prescribed by a physician. I don't know about you, but I didn't vote for everybody to grow dope in their house and sell it carte blanche on the street without so much as any regulation, any inspection, any assurance that this stuff is being grown properly, safely, and kept out of the hands of those that don't need it. Our public safety officers now respond to a house for some emergency. Our emergency medical technicians, I had one call me last week and say, thanks for bringing it up. Nobody else is bringing it up. He said, I wasn't trained to fight drugs in a house. He said, we're called to an emergency, and what do we find? Drugs all over the house. And I'm not pointing everybody on that, but it's a big enough concern that this isn't an unusual event. It's a common occurrence in the community here in Escanaba. We have an opportunity to fix something. We have an opportunity and we have an obligation to do that. What we're asking for in this resolution is, again, and I repeat this because I got hit with it. I was surprised we didn't see some people here tonight contest my presentation from last week. This is the place to do it. Come have a reasonable conversation. The public needs to be involved with this discussion. We're going to ask the state to give us the names of those folks who are growing this, so that we have the opportunity to see that it's grown or grown properly, or maybe not in our community. We see in California, because they were ahead of us in legalizing this, and look at the mess it's caused in California. They have the 8th largest economy in the world, and now they're broke. They didn't need any government money. Where are we going with this? We're going to need more police officers, more fire officers, more hazardous materials, a bigger jail, and how about if we charge you millage for folks that are abusing these drugs? I don't want to pay it. It isn't all marijuana, but it's, marijuana, you can argue if you want, it is a gateway drug, in my opinion. We're having trouble with the growth of meth in our community. They're building it in two-gallon or 2-liter bottles of pop, riding around in the car. We've had instances, I'm told, those blowing up. We had on the Iron Mountain last week where a guy was burned, sent to the Milwaukee Burn Center. Who wants to see that? Who wants to have your kid who's going out hunting or walking through the woods find these bottles and pick them up and throw one and have it blow up on them? I mean, am I exaggerating things? I'm not in public safety, so if I am, somebody please tell me. But this is what I hear. We have a resolution that has been worked on. I totally support it. Again, I think it's an obligation of the council. We have the leadership of the community. I beg and plead with the other municipalities here to join us in passing a like resolution to ask the state to fix the problems that we are experiencing in Delta County. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Toole, you want to report on the report?
Yes, if I can. The administration was tasked with coming up with a discussion resolution, so if I may just put the following on the table. It's a resolution which supports changes to the State of Michigan Medical Marijuana Act and related regulations which will add clarity and certainty to protect qualifying patients' safe and legal access to medical marijuana and safeguard the interests of the local community. Whereas on November 4th, 2009, by 63% of votes, Michigan voters affirmatively voted yes to Proposal 1, the Medical Marijuana Act. Whereas on November 4th, 2009, by 56% of votes, Delta County voters affirmatively voted yes to Proposal 1, the Medical Marijuana Act. Whereas on November 4th, 2009, by 56% of votes, the City of Escanaba voters affirmatively voted yes to Proposal Number 1, the Medical Marijuana Act. Whereas the Escanaba City Council supports the voter-approved right for those with certain terminal or debilitating chronic conditions to obtain medical marijuana for personal use. Whereas, ever since the passage of the law, numerous questions have arisen about the enforcement of the law, its impact and unintended consequences on the local communities, and the regulation of medical marijuana dispensaries. Whereas, it is the position of the Escanaba City Council that portions of the law, regulation, and its administrative rules are vague and confusing, for patients, providers, local units of government, and law enforcement agencies. Whereas, it is the belief of the Escanaba City Council that the State of Michigan Attorney General Bill Schuette has opined that the MMA does not codify a right to use marijuana. Instead, it merely provides a procedure through which seriously ill individuals using marijuana for its palliative effects can be identified and protected from prosecution under state law. Whereas, the Escanaba City Council supports changes to the law and regulations which add clarity and certainty to protect not only a qualifying patient's safe and legal access to medical marijuana, but the community in general by 1. Providing greater insulation for the production, processing, and dispensing of medical marijuana in residential neighborhoods. 2. Providing greater insulation from the production, processing, and dispensing of medical marijuana near schools, daycares, playgrounds, and other similar uses that are frequented by children. 3. Providing rules which prohibit the discharge of noxious smoke and odors directly upon abutting or adjacent to public or private property or that of another tenant or building occupant. 4. Providing measures which allow law enforcement access to non-public information so as to streamline law enforcement response to marijuana complaints, which will assist in both the safety of the citizen and law enforcement. 5. 1. Ensuring unnecessary processing of search warrants. 2. Ensuring that law enforcement is not wasting valuable and limited resources investigating an allowed and bona fide marijuana grow operation. 3. Establishing who the bona fide users are and the location where marijuana is being manufactured. 5. Ensuring a bona fide physician-patient relationship exists by having doctors more involved in the patient's need for the treatment. 6. Ensuring that an enclosed locked facility means a closet, room, or other comparable stationary and fully enclosed area equipped with secure locks and other functioning security devices that permit access only to the registered primary caregiver or registered qualifying patient. 7. Requiring our primary caregiver to be a Michigan resident who is at least 21 years old and has never been convicted of a felony. 8. Requiring a qualifying patient to be a Michigan resident who has been diagnosed by a physician as having a debilitating medical condition. 9. Requiring the state of Michigan to process primary caregiver and qualifying patient registry identification cards in a more timely fashion as specified by the law. Whereas, the city of Escanaba asked that Governor Rick Snyder create a statewide medical marijuana task force consisting of representatives from local units of government, law enforcement, the physician medical profession, business community, nonprofit organizations serving patients with chronic illness and patients with chronic illness to study and review the law and regulation and provide the governor's office with written feedback and recommendations for changes to the Medical Marijuana Act, which uniformly resolves the conflicts and disputes found in the Act. Now, there be resolved by the City Council of the City of Escanaba, this resolution be forwarded to Governor Rick Snyder, Senator Tom Casperson, and Representative Ed McBroom for immediate consideration and action.
The resolution, Mr. Baker.
I think there's one thing missing, and Mr. Nelson's point, I think what's missing is citizen input. And I compliment the administration. I think this is the 4th draft. And I agree with it. I'm going to support this draft. And but I'm wondering if it is, since the agenda tonight says we're going to discuss it, is there a possibility that we could move this resolution forward to the next official meeting as a public hearing item? And so if the general public would want the opportunity then to come forward to council and express their opinion on the resolution before we pass it. But again, I think education, the city administration 2 weeks ago provided a very in-depth training film and with presenters and public safety, and it was an eye-opener. And again, I do support you. I think your fourth or fifth draft here. And I know it was quite an undertaking. Comments?
Comments, Mr. Motion?
I'll just mention that when I saw the first draft, and even the second and third draft, that I was thinking there are things that I'd like to see added to this, more specific information, some of the details that our police chief gave us, citing like some of the raids that they conducted only to find out that people had a card, that sort of thing. Cite specific paragraphs of the existing law, and then the problems that the city of Escanaba is facing as a result of the existing language. But I could see where that would become rather lengthy, and probably, I guess, the first order of business that this task force would be looking at, going throughout the state, talking to different public safety units and gathering those facts, and then looking at the specific paragraphs, problem areas. Personally, the item 4 there, the public safety asking for more non-public information. We truly have our driver's license information, our car registration information. Police chief mentioned that they now have concealed weapon permit information. From a civil liberty standpoint, I'm not all that much in favor of another sort of registration, especially when it's medical related. People get a 90-day supply of Vicodin now because of a bad shoulder. It's just something to consider. But I agree, this appears to be a necessary step based on the information we've received from our police chief. The existing law is full of holes and is posing rather serious problems for them. Thank you.
Mr. Wilson, or you yield to Ms. Barron? Okay.
I just think that given the privacy issues with medical records, which the one area that you just can't get access to, I think you're going to be hard pressed under Part 4, Part 3 of Part 4, establishing who the bona fide users are. I think the growers, but I don't know if you're ever going to get access to that information. I mean, it's fine to ask, but I just don't think that's going to come up. But that's one of the problems.
Mr. Wilson?
One thing I didn't mention in my opening there is the fact that it's rather amazing to me that of all the intoxicants out there, and we've had an alcohol problem here since
1863.
1860. I think it was before that. But you cannot do any sort of intoxicant without some regulation and control, and there's a reason for that. We do have a concern. We are responsible for public safety. I have talked about this for 2 years. It's been kind of an area, I can be mad at the police, and then I look at the law and I say, well, these guys got about as much authority as I do when it comes to this. I think we've asked for public input. We've had special meetings on the drug. Quite frankly, I've talked to a number of people who are intimidated by one side or the other to come forward. We're not going to get it. This would be nice, in my opinion, to have state law mirror what we've written here. But in all reality, if we get anything, it's going to be a hybrid of what we presented here. Not a favor of delaying this anymore. We can delay this for forever. We have a responsibility to do something. It's a problem. There is no definition that it's a problem. We can talk about the details of this, but in the end, we have nothing more but a resolution. unless you're really offended by the draft resolution that we've put together or have something that is not palatable to you, I would not favor delaying this. You know, we delay it 1 week and we have another death. And not that we're going to cure all the problems here, but let's take it seriously. One of the things, you know, if you have a family looking to come here, would you come to Escanaba right now? I mean, we have a reputation. Am I wrong? I mean, this is, if drugs are a problem, you've got to take a look at it. And that's not the legal use of it, it's the illegal use of it. And the reason that the state has not put in any regulation in regards, or any pharmacy or medical group have come in and taken this over, because it is still illegal federally. So if a big drug company starts to produce medical marijuana, you can bet they're going to be in jail, because it's against federal law. We haven't discussed that. But, you know, it's a resolution to the state. I've talked about it for 2 years at several council meetings. I haven't gotten a lot of response from anybody. You know, we talked about it last week. It made some of the blogs, the Daily Press has certainly covered it frequently. The Daily, Channel 6 has had a blog out there. I mean, at some point, does the public have a feeling on it or not? They're not here. The resolution is. I don't see any point in delaying this any further.
Any additional comments? I suppose we send it down to them, doesn't mean you got to listen anyway, right?
Absolutely. I hope they do know. I will say this, if I can, Mayor. You know, we've gotten response from the governor's office. I don't know how they stand on it, but, you know, they've contacted us. They want to know what we're doing here. I think we've taken a leadership role in the state of Michigan. I did talk to Representative McBroom. I briefly gave him an overview of what my concerns were here, and he was certainly supportive of what I told him at a football game, so in a cold football game. But I think there is some support there. I think we could see certainly something move forward to correct some serious problems with the current medical marijuana laws that exist.
Send this to him and I'll have them, not that I'm worried about them checking over it, but see if they have support from some of the others. This is a reference.
I personally don't see any value in doing
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Look for Ms. Baker.
Yeah, just my thought to, and comments to delay or put it on another agenda resolution was certainly not a lack of taking this as a serious issue, because I do take it as a serious issue. And I have a great deal of empathy for those people that need this from a medical standpoint. And I want them to have it if it helps them. But I also want public safety and the safety of our community taken care of. And I don't believe, like most everybody else here, that the current law and its current status does that very well. And I think it needs some refinement. And I do support what's been written thus far, but as I said, I like others, I was hoping to have more public input. But I'm also willing to move forward if that's the desire of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to be made? Mr. Townsend?
Mayor, I would move that council approve the resolution as presented to be sent to the state of Michigan regarding the Medical Marijuana Act Council resolution, and that be sent to the Governor Rick Snyder of the state of Michigan, State Representative Ed McBroom, and State Senator Tom Casperson.
A motion on the floor, is there a second? second the motion. Discussion? Discussion. All right, move on. Roll call, Mr. Richards.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Call the mayor. Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Baraboo,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowe.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on, item number 8 is update on power generation, power plant operations options by the city administration.
Administration will update the city council and public on the sale of power plant related items. Last week at the joint city council electrical advisory committee,